Thank you very much for being here. My name is Emanuele Ratti and I work at Johannes Kepler University Linz. This is a joint work with Mark Graves from Parexel AI Labs. And this work is based on a paper which is almost 10,000 words, and we have to make a choice with respect to what to include in the presentation. We focus more on the practical aspect. If you want to hear more about the theoretical part, then you can just send me an email and we will share the draft with you. And so in this work, we want to formulate our own view of how data and AI ethics should look like, especially in responsible conduct of research of data scientists. And this is motivated by our understanding of the discipline of data and AI ethics today. So in the past few years, the literature has exploded, and not just like in the sense of mere chaotic proliferation of articles and initiatives, but it seems our impression is that the discipline of data and AI ethics is a discipline with specific characteristics. And in particular, it is a discipline with a pronounced principled vocation. So ethics is understood first and foremost as an effort to formulate higher level principles that are used to inform conversation about governance and regulation of AI. And under this rubric, there has been a proliferation of private and public initiative for formulating the correct principles, and we call this approach to data and AI ethics art ethics or macroethics. The question we want to ask in this talk is whether this approach is effective in making data scientists more ethical, and whether there is a clear what is the understanding of being ethical here. So this principle approach has proven effective as a microethics, but a number of issues have emerged when those principles have been applied to the actual practice of data science. So apart from the many problems of applicability that we analyze in the paper, there is also this rule-based, automation-seeking conception of ethics that assume that being ethical means compliance. And within this perspective, compliance can be mindless, such that no one is really interested in whether or not data scientists learn ethics. As long as they are compliant, we expose data scientists to the principle and the rules, and that's everything we need to do. Here we propose an approach based on the idea that rather than mere compliance, ethical decision-making consists in using certain moral abilities which are cultivated by practicing and exercising them in the data science process. Those moral abilities are moral virtues, so here is the virtue ethics, and we call our approach microethics. It's a form of ethical training in which the goal for a data scientist is to learn how to identify the ethical relevance of every phase of the data science pipeline. And the approach is based on virtue ethics and the capability approach. We explain more in detail in the paper in which sense we think we take the word virtue ethics, the concept of virtue ethics and capability approach. Here I'm just going to show you like the main components. And the first is the general view connected to virtue ethics, that the aim of the ethical training is to cultivate moral excellencies called moral virtues in identifying the ethical dimension of a situation. Ethical training happens along the same lines and in the same context in which data scientists learn the skills necessary to become skilled data scientists. So ethics is not external to practice, but is rather internal to it. It's part of the practice. And as we learn like the skills by practicing and learning from role models, we do the same with ethics. So it's based on virtue ethics and the analogy between skill and virtues in the way they are acquired. The second component is more about the moral abilities that we want to learn. In the paper, we identify especially one, which we call moral attention, which is an excellence in identifying and grasping the ethical relevance of a situation. And we have defined an action as ethically relevant by using the capability approach. We say that an action is ethically relevant when it has tangible impact on the patterns of behavior and thoughts of other individuals, or what the other individuals perceive they can be or can do. And data science plays a huge role in shaping how data scientists adjust their preferences because of this perception. And we have specified this idea by connecting to the capability approach. So when something is ethically relevant, it impacts one or more of the 10 basic capabilities. And so in other words, one cultivates moral attention by systematically asking questions about the relevance of each technical process of operation for the basic capabilities of data subject. And there are 10 main basic capabilities, and they're all relevant in every data science project. However, here, and some of them are more relevant in certain environment rather than other. Here we'll focus on life and bodily health because we're interested in understanding the microethics that emerge in data science applied to healthcare. And in particular, we think that cultivating and exercising moral attention in this context means basically two things, or basically means asking two big set of questions that we call Q1 and Q2. So first, data scientists should pay attention to how processing data can impair health in a way that down the road impair other capabilities, because we know that life and bodily health are necessary conditions for the other capabilities to work. And second, we want to connect this more to the understanding of health as a capability, which is understood by Ruger as the ability to pursue valuable health goals. However, in order to, let's say, pursue valuable health goals or to have the substantial freedom to do that, there are some conversion factors. So some external socially dependent factors that affect this, such as social norms, social networks and capital, group membership, and so on. And cultivating moral attention requires the data scientists pay attention to how the mundane technical decision obfuscate or hide some of these factors that, if impacted, can lead to a substantial decrease of health agency. And we want to ask this for all the phases of the data science process. And in the example that we bring today, we focus especially on data understanding, even though in the paper we also discuss at length data preparation. Data understanding is the process of describing and exploring the data and identifying data quality issues to understand its size, quantity, and accuracy. And we decided to focus on that because this is a phase that is usually understood as being very technical, morally neutral, that have nothing to do with ethics, unlike other phases of the data science process. But we show that the dense microethics emerge from this, especially by the working example of constructing features from electronic health records to predict, cohort, and plan intervention of various sorts. So a microethics approach to data understanding basically requires not only understanding data statistically, but also in its socio-technical context. So to understand also those factors that are conversion factors in understanding, like health agency as a capability. Moral attention can help identify geographic, biomedical, behavioral, and social factors influencing the understanding of data. So for instance, in understanding electronic health records, one might discover that 80% of the data is exported cleanly from an electronic medical record, CMR, and 20% requires optical character recognition of scan and fax document, OCR. This is probably a very common situation. A technically prudent and accountable decision would be to put aside the OCR, which are very time consuming, and proceed with the EMR. However, and here come like the moral attention and the microethics, one should ask why certain data sets are in OCR rather than in EMR. And if we ask this question with capabilities in mind, we cultivate moral attention more thoroughly. So for instance, if data sets are in OCR because they come from underserved areas, then one may negatively affect the health agency of those who live in that area, because superficially going through OCR data will mean exclude them from the big data. Attention should be paid to some of the external factors that shape health agency that Ruger identifies, and then can be found in data set or infer from them. One can check if there are differences in EMR and OCR with respect to economic circumstances, such as income and employment status, or facilities, resource neighborhoods, and other factors. And these considerations are not important only for health agency per se, because impact of an capability can have downstream consequences also for other capabilities, such as capabilities of affiliation controls over one's environment. And we discussed this at length in the paper. So even a seemingly neutral and innocent technical decision of spending more time in understanding why some electronic health records data requires OCR can have substantial ethical relevance upon multiple capabilities. Another important aspect of data understanding is connected to missing data. It's a common situation that data sets are incomplete, there are data missing or appearing as outliers. And usually data scientists have a free way of categorizing these missing data. So data can be missing completely at random, which does not affect statistical analysis. They can be missing at random, which, although not actually random, can be statistically treated that way using other known variables. And they can be missing not at random, which is missing due to reason the variable is measured. So we think that not just a technical attention, but also a moral attention is necessary in order to understand in which category the data fall in. And so consider, for instance, an intervention to improve access to nutritional food among patients with diabetes. To measure the effect of the intervention, one might choose participants who regularly have fasting glucose tolerance test results. The exchanging those results could indicate whether the intervention affects blood sugar. So even though some participant glucose tests might not be obviously missing, if they have less frequent testing due to other health conditions or are recognized social factors, such as healthcare access or financial constraint, they could be excluded from intervention due to same underlying reason that reduce their access to nutrition food. So data may mean not missing at random, so missing not at random. If data are missing at random, one can use statistical method to address the omission, making sure that no inadvertent inequities are introduced. In deciding that some data are missing at random instead of missing not at random, one may compare a subject with and without data and establish that the data missing do not affect the relevant capabilities. If those with fewer tests are similar to those with more tests, with more tests with respect to other conversion factors, those included, then data are missing at random instead of missing not at random. So moral attention here does not mean only imagining the moral attention of not having the data points. It requires a genuine understanding of the moral dimension of missing data. And in the complete draft, we also focus on the phase of data preparation, which is basically data cleaning and data transformation. And in general, our big project is to apply this type of framework to all the phases of the data science project. So this is everything that we wanted to present today. We just want, let's say, also to point out that the theoretical framework has been also elaborated in collaboration with Louise Bezenderhut in a paper that we published on AI Society very recently. And if you need the draft, just write me an email and we will share it with you. Thank you.